In this autumn season, the Bodhi tree leaves, formed through a wondrous connection, are slightly yellowing. Warm sunlight filters through the gaps between the leaves, casting dappled shadows upon the ground. The Buddha was delivering a sermon to his disciples under the tree, the scene solemn and serene. At that moment, a tall monk clad in robes hurriedly arrived, his face filled with sorrow and anxiety. This monk is none other than Venerable Maudgalyāyana, renowned for his foremost supernatural powers, one of the Buddha's 10 principal disciples, and usually the most accomplished among them all. Yet at this moment, he appears exceptionally haggard. The Venerable Maudgalyāyana approached the Buddha, knelt on both knees, and tears fell like beads broken from string. None of the disciples had ever seen the mighty Maudgalyāyana so sorrowful. They all turned their gaze solemnly, and the scene immediately fell into silence. The Blessed One, Venerable Mushin's voice choked with emotion as he said, "Using my supernatural powers, I sought out the Queen Mother, but I found her fallen into a bad path. Her appearance was emaciated, her throat extremely thin, her abdomen swollen and distended. When seeing water, it turned to fire, and she suffered from both hunger and thirst simultaneously. I tried to offer her food, but as soon as the food reached her mouth, it transformed into burning coal. The Blessed One, my mother is suffering such torment in the realm of hungry ghosts. How can I save her? Will we meet again in this life?" The Venerable Maudgalyāyana was renowned for his filial piety. Although he was skilled in supernatural powers, he could not rescue his own mother. This sense of helplessness caused him immense anguish. He lifted his tear-filled eyes, looking at the Buddha with hope, wondering if, after the passing of loved ones, they would truly reunite in the 6 realms, or remain separated by life and death forever. This question is not only the doubt of Maudgalyāyana, but also the confusion in the hearts of all the disciples present. The greatest suffering for human beings is the parting of life and death from their dearest loved ones. When death separates us from our loved ones, the heart-wrenching longing and regret torment our souls day and night like an unhealable wound. Who has not gazed upon the starry sky, longing to know if departed loved ones are at peace? The unknown nature of samsara, the longing to reunite with loved ones, and the confusion surrounding aspirations related to life and death. These are questions that hover in the hearts of every individual. The Buddha looked compassionately at the magnolia tree, his eyes filled with wisdom and compassion. He understands that this issue concerning life and death, which touches the hearts of millions, not only requires an answer, but also necessitates the beginning of a truth that can guide sentient beings out of delusion. The Buddha smiled gently and said, "Maudgalyāyana, lift up your head, and I will explain to you the causes and conditions of gathering and dispersing within the cycle of the 6 realms of samsara." Maudgalyāyana raised her tearful eyes, attentively listening to the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha spoke slowly, explaining that sentient beings revolve endlessly within the 6 realms of samsara: the Deva realm, human realm, Asura realm, animal realm, hungry ghost realm, and hell realm. Each rebirth is guided by its own karma, like a river flowing according to its course. It cannot be contradicted. The Buddha pointed to a small stream outside the place of awe. Observing the stream, one could see the water from the mountain dividing into hundreds of tributaries. Some flowed into the vast ocean, while others vanished into the desert. Loved ones are like droplets of water. Karma is like the terrain, determining the course of each life. If 2 drops of water flow into different rivers, when will they meet again? The wooden pointed curtain spoke in classical language, with a slightly solemn expression, but the Buddha continued, "However, just as rivers flow into the vast ocean, sentient beings too shall experience meetings. This very encounter, whether joyous or sorrowful, whether between kin or foes, is all determined by each other's karmic force and conditions of cause and effect." The Buddha rose from his seat, walked into the courtyard, picked up a leaf, and gently placed it in his palm. "Look at this leaf," he said. "It once clung to the branch, but now it has fallen." The leaf replied, When shall we reunite with the branch again? But the real question is whether they still exist in the same form. Maudgalyāyana nodded thoughtfully, and the Buddha continued. The cycle of 6 realms turns ceaselessly. Sentient beings are impermanent and ever-changing. In this life, they may be mother and child. In the next, husband and wife. In the following life, enemies, and later, teacher and disciple. Relationships constantly change, but karma continuously connects them. A young novice monk could not help but ask, "O Shakyamuni, are we destined to search forever for our lost loved ones within the 6 realms? Isn't that very sorrowful?" The Buddha smiled and shook his head. "No, it is not so. You must understand that the purpose of samsara is not reunion, but liberation. Attachment to reunion is precisely the root of suffering. Imagine, if everyone were attached to reuniting with loved ones from the past, would they not be eternally pursuing this in the boundless 6 realms? This is precisely the bondage of samsara." The Buddha returned to his seat, his gaze filled with compassion as he looked over the assembly. "I am not saying that you should not care about the humiliation suffered by your loved ones, but rather reminding you that instead of being fixated on reunion, it is better to focus on how to help your loved ones attain liberation. Practicing the righteous path and accumulating vast meritorious virtues is the greatest help one can offer to their loved ones." Maudgalyāyana, upon hearing the Buddha's words, felt a bit of clarity in his heart, yet still harbored doubts. "Venerable teacher, my mother is currently suffering in the realm of hungry ghosts. How can I help her?" The Buddha nodded, saying, "It is precisely because of the profound karmic connection between you and your mother that you were able to perceive her condition through supernatural powers. This is the karmic connection between you. Beings in the realm of hungry ghosts suffer from hunger and thirst because of their stinginess in performing generous acts during their lifetime. To save your mother, you need to cultivate a pure mind and generate merit on her behalf by making offerings to the monastics and supporting the 3 jewels, then dedicate the merit to her." The Buddha paused briefly and continued, "Observe carefully. Every rebirth within the 6 realms of samsara is the result of the karma from previous lives and also the seed for the karma of future lives. The bonds between relatives are like knots in a rope. Some are loose and easily undone, while others are tangled and intertwined. The entanglement of karmic forces causes us to meet and part again within the 6 realms." The Buddha picked up a few grains of sand from the ground and placed them in his palm. Observing these grains, he noted that a gust of wind would scatter them easily, but if they were moistened with water and then dried under the sun, they would temporarily stick together. The karmic connections among relatives are likewise such. Sometimes they gather, sometimes they part, yet they are never truly severed. Subhuti asked, "Then, can we be reunited with our departed loved ones?" The Buddha's gaze transcends time and space. The essence of reunion lies not in the meeting of forms, but in the communion of hearts. When you practice the right path, with a heart full of compassion and wisdom, you will reunite with your loved ones in a higher realm. This encounter transcends life and death, surpasses physical forms, and embodies true, unwavering devotion. The Buddha looked into the eyes of Milan, his tone growing even more resolute. "Do not grieve upon seeing your mother in the hell realms. This is merely one stop in her long journey of samsara. You should help her with a compassionate heart, rather than indulging in sorrow. Remember, within the 6 realms of samsara, there is no eternal separation, nor genuine reunion. There is only the flowing of dependent origination and the pulling of karmic forces." Maudgalyāyana no longer clung to his past. The fog of confusion in his heart gradually lifted, and he began to understand the Buddha's teaching on the law of dependent origination and the arising and passing away of conditions. The Buddha saw the young wooden lotus seemed to have attained some understanding, and continued on. "Maudgalyāyana, I will further explain to you the truth of dependent origination. In the cycle of the 6 realms of samsara, sentient beings encounter one another primarily driven by 2 forces, karma and vow. The air inside the Dharma hall seemed to solidify as everyone attentively listened to the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha slowly said, "Karma is like the flow of a river, accumulated from past actions, words, and thoughts. If there is a profound karmic connection between two people, whether it is love or hatred, this karma will cause them to meet again in future lives." The Buddha raised his hand, forming a circular gesture, revealing that a couple deeply in love in this life may become father and son in the next. A pair of enemies in this life, filled with mutual hatred, may become entangled relatives in the next life. The bonds of karma cause sentient beings to continually encounter each other within the 6 realms, though their roles may be reversed. Upon hearing this, Maudgalyāyana could not help but recall the deep affection between herself and her mother, stirring emotions within her heart. The Buddha seemed to see through his thoughts, saying that your karmic connection with your mother extends beyond this lifetime. In past lives, you have often been mother and child, siblings, or teacher and disciple. These karmic connections cause you, even as my disciple, to still be concerned about his whereabouts. However, the Buddha's voice became more solemn, stating that reunions based solely on karmic connections may be painful. Just as you now, although you see your mother through divine powers, you feel deep anguish because she suffers in the realm of hungry ghosts. This reunion is not liberation, but another form of bondage. An elder bhikkhu asked, "World-honored one, how then should we transform this karmic pull so that reunions become liberation rather than bondage?" The Buddha smiled and nodded. "This is precisely the second power I wish to speak of, the power of aspiration. The power of vow arises from a serene aspiration and bodhisattva. It can transcend the bondage of karma and guide sentient beings toward liberation." The Buddha rose from his seat and walked to a Bodhi tree in the courtyard. Like this tree, its roots delve deep into the earth, absorbing water and nutrients, symbolizing karma. Its branches and leaves reach toward the sunlight, symbolizing the power of aspiration. Although the roots are confined to the soil, the branches and leaves can freely extend. The osmanthus-faced one, the Buddha, gazed upon it. Although your supernatural power allows you to see your mother's situation, what can truly save her is your vow and practice. When you practice with a pure heart and make a vow to save your mother, this vow transforms karmic forces, creating opportunities for her liberation. The Buddha recalled a past event. "I once saw a mother and son who, due to heavy karma from a previous life, both fell into a lower realm of existence. However, before her passing, the mother generated a sincere thought of repentance and made a vow to practice liberation in her next life. This single-minded vow enabled her to recall the previous causes while experiencing retribution in the evil realms, thereby arousing a heart of repentance. Later, through her practice, she was reborn in the heavenly realm, where she reunited with her son, who had also been practicing in a pure and serene place. This is the power of the vow. The Buddha and his resolute determination can transform the nature of reunion, changing it from an entanglement of karma to a meeting of liberation. The doubts in Maudgalyāyana's heart gradually faded away. He asked, "Shakyamuni, how should I use the power of vows to save my mother?" The Buddha smiled gently, his eyes radiating a serene expression that encompassed his entire face. The 15th day of the 7th month is Sangzi Day, when all monks individually confess their faults and purify their body and mind. On this day, you may extensively make offerings, offering to the monks from all 10 directions, and then dedicate the merit to your mother. Such the power of this vow and blessing will surely enable her to be freed from the sufferings of the realm of hungry ghosts. The Buddha turned to the assembly, radiating even greater compassion. Everyone should understand that in the cycle of the 6 realms of rebirth, reunion is not accidental, but the inevitable result of karmic conditions. Maudgalyāyana, the Buddha spoke to all with heartfelt compassion, saying, "Your separation from your mother in this life, though seemingly painful, is in fact an opportunity for both of you to attain liberation together. Your vow power transcends karmic force, not merely to reunite with your mother, but to guide her towards liberation. The Buddha's gaze swept over everyone present. Remember, the truth of reunion lies not in the meeting of forms, but in the resonance of hearts and minds. When all your minds cultivate with the aim of liberation, no matter where you are, you have in truth already reunited. Upon hearing these words, Maudgalyāyana's heart suddenly became clear. He deeply kowtowed and said, "The teachings of the Buddha have been received by your humble disciple. I will faithfully follow the teachings and, with the power of my vow, save my mother and guide her toward liberation." The Buddha nodded compassionately, his eyes shining with the light of wisdom. "Well said. Well said. Maudgalyāyana, you have already understood the relationship between karma and aspiration, but there is a deeper truth you need to comprehend: the wisdom of compassion and letting go." The atmosphere within the Dharma hall grew even more solemn. The disciples held their breath in silent attention. Many were deeply attached to the hope of reunion with their loved ones, yearning day and night, often to the point of tears streaming down their faces. Such attachment itself is the root cause of suffering. The Buddha picked up a stone and held it in his hand. He observed, "If I tightly grasp this stone and do not let go, my arm will become fatigued. But if I release it at the appropriate time, my arm will naturally feel relaxed." The longing for loved ones is the same. Clinging rigidly brings suffering. Understanding how to let go leads instead to liberation. Subhuti, perplexed, asked, "World-honored one, does letting go mean forgetting? I cannot imagine what it is like to forget one's mother." The Buddha shook his head and smiled, saying, "Letting go is not forgetting, but transformation. Just like this Bodhi tree, it does not cling to the leaves that have fallen, but uses dependent origination to nurture the growth of new buds." Similarly, the longing for loved ones should be transformed into compassion for all sentient beings. The Tathagata turned to the assembly and said, "When you miss your loved ones, why not ask yourself, what would they most wish to see? Your constant mourning day and night, or that you live a meaningful life with accomplished practice?" A young layperson could not help but ask, "Blessed one, my mother passed away 3 years ago, and I still frequently dream of her. How should I face this longing?" The Buddha compassionately looked at him. "Meeting in a dream. This is a manifestation that the karmic connection between you has not yet ended. More importantly, you must understand that the best way to honor someone is not through attachment and sorrow, but by diligently practicing virtuous deeds and dedicating the merits to them." The Buddha further explained that when you light a lamp and recite sutras, it is not only to illuminate the path for the ruler, but also to illuminate your own inner mind. When you steadfastly practice goodness, it not only accumulates merit for the sovereign, but also purifies your own mind. Maudgalyāyana seemed thoughtful and said, "Bhagwan, do you mean that compassion is not only for the sovereign, but also for oneself?" The Buddha nodded with satisfaction. "Exactly so. Compassion is reciprocal. When you recite Amitabha Buddha's name, chant mantras, recite the Kitagarbha Sutra, or say Namo Amitabha Buddha with a heart of compassion, you are not only praying for the blessings of your loved ones, but also comforting your own spirit." The Buddha arose from his seat, walked to the window, and gazed at the distant mountains with a serene face. Imagine, if your mother knew that you were grieving day and night out of longing for her, would she be at peace? On the contrary, if he knows that you diligently cultivate the path for the benefit of all sentient beings, would he not be even more pleased? In Maudgalyāyana's eyes shimmered tears, for he found the words of the world-honored one to be reasonable. "The greatest wish of my late mother was for me to achieve success." The Buddha smiled kindly and said, "Your greatest filial piety is not to be immersed in grief, but to diligently cultivate the way and fulfill his wishes. This is true compassion, both towards others and oneself." The Buddha returned to his seat and looked around. "Everyone, I will teach you several practical cultivation methods that can help you transform your longing for loved ones and move toward liberation. First is the practice of reciting the Buddha's name, specifically the name Namo Amichuofo, homage to Amitabha Buddha. This not only calms one's own mind, but also accumulates merit for one's family members. When you recite the Buddha's name, in your heart, you should wish that the merit accrued be dedicated to your loved ones, hoping they are reborn in the Pure Land, freed from suffering and endowed with happiness. In fact, reciting mantras, chanting the Sutra of the Earth Store Bodhisattva, or invoking the holy name of Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva is particularly effective for the liberation and transcendence of the deceased. Bodhisattva Kshitigarbha once made a great vow. Until hell is empty, I vow not to attain Buddhahood, which corresponds to your wish to liberate and save your deceased relatives. The third is non-losing. There are 3 types of non-loss: non-loss of wealth, non-loss of dharma, and non-loss of fearlessness. You can donate wealth to the impoverished, share the dharma with those seeking the path, and offer comfort to the fearful. The merits of these 3 types of non-deprivation can all be dedicated to one's relatives. Finally, the practice of releasing living beings is a form of fearless compassion. When you save a life that is about to be taken, you not only give them a chance to live, but also accumulate the merit and resources for liberation for yourself and your loved ones. The Buddha looked at the wooden lotus bud and said earnestly, "Wooden lotus, remember, the most precious thing is not reunion with loved ones, but every moment in the present. Cherish the time spent with living loved ones, treating them with kindness and love. This is the best way to continue the karmic relationship." An elder monk asked, "Shakyamuni, if we perform these virtuous deeds, will our relatives surely attain liberation?" The Buddha looked at him deeply and said, "Liberation is a mutual effort. The dedication of merit is an external force, while the mindset of the loved ones themselves is the internal cause. Only the combination of both can achieve the best result." The Buddha concluded, "Remember, letting go is not forgetting, but transformation. Compassion is not attachment, but wisdom. When you learn to practice while contemplating and contemplate while practicing, you have found the path to liberation." Upon hearing these words, Maudgalyāyana's inner confusion further dissipated. He respectfully said to the Buddha, "Shakyamuni, I understand. I will replace endless longing with diligent practice, and with the vow to universally save all beings, I will help my mother attain liberation." The Buddha smiled compassionately, his gaze full of affirmation and encouragement. Maudgalyāyana, you now understand the relationship between karma and vow power, and also comprehend the wisdom of compassion and letting go. However, there is an even deeper realm beyond the cyclic existence of the 6 realms. The atmosphere within the Dharma hall instantly became solemn and sacred. The Buddha slowly arrives. Reunions within the 6 realms of samsara, no matter how affectionate, remain limited and transient. Behind every reunion, the future parting still remains concealed. True eternal gathering lies in enlightenment and liberation. The Buddha rose from his seat, walked to the center of the courtyard, and gazed up at the starry sky. You gaze upon the star-filled sky. Though gathered from afar, they together illuminate the night. Sentient beings who have attained awakening are the same. Although their forms differ, they unite as one in the nature of Dharma. The tip of the eye gazes up at the starry sky, as if lost in deep contemplation. Venerable Shakyamuni, you mean that after awakening, we can reunite with our loved ones on some higher plane? The Buddha smiled and nodded, signifying not merely a meeting, but a transcendence beyond the duality of meeting and parting. In the realm of ultimate liberation, the intrinsic nature of sentient beings is like droplets of water merging into the vast ocean, each retaining its individual existence while uniting as one, inseparable and mutually supportive. When you cultivate to a certain realm, you will naturally understand that all sentient beings are fundamentally one. Your relationship with your mother can also transcend narrow familial affection and elevate into a vast source of Dharma. The Buddha further explained that under the guidance of the Bodhisattva, you will not only care for your own mother, but also for all sentient beings in the six realms. This great compassion will establish the Dharma connection between you and countless sentient beings. An elderly bhikkhu asked, "Venerable One, is this gathering beyond the six realms the pure land of Ullambana Buddha?" The Buddha smiled and affirmed, "Well said. The pure land of ultimate bliss is a pristine Buddha field accomplished through the vow power of Ullambana Buddha. There, sentient beings are free from the bondage of the six realms of samsara and can practice together with like-minded practitioners, progressing harmoniously." The Buddha turned to Maudgalyāyana and said, "The special excellence of the Pure Land lies in the fact that sentient beings can retain their positive karmic connections and dissolve their negative karmic ties. If both you and your mother can be reborn in the Pure Land, not only will you be able to meet each other, but you can also cultivate together and jointly realize Buddhahood." Eyes sharp as a spear with intricate lines on the face, the eyes shimmering with the light of hope. The Blessed One compassionately explained, "You must understand, to be reborn in the Pure Land requires the three measures of faith, vow, and practice. First, you need to help your mother develop faith and trust in the salvation of Ullambana Buddha. Secondly, assist him in making the vow to be reborn in the Pure Land. Finally, cultivate merits, such as reciting the Buddha's name for him, thereby enhancing the karmic prerequisites for a favorable rebirth." The Buddha pointed to the distance and said, "When you and your mother are both reborn in the Pure Land, your reunion there will be eternal. Because the Pure Land is not bound by the cycle of birth and death, sentient beings have immeasurable lifespans and ample time to complete their practice and attain liberation." The Buddha's gaze swept over all the disciples present. "Everyone, you must understand that true union is not in physical forms, but in the mind. It is not in the six realms, but in awakening. When all of you generate the Bodhi mind and cultivate the Bodhisattva path, you will ultimately reunite in the boundless Buddha lands. Maudgalyāyana, the bond between you and your mother should not be confined to the mother-child relationship of this lifetime. If you can guide him onto the path of enlightenment, your relationship will be elevated to that of Bodhisattva companions, practicing together and realizing Bodhi over countless kalpas." The Buddha continued to teach, saying, "The Avatamsaka Sutra states, 'One is all is one.' When you realize the essence of the Dharma realm, you will naturally understand that you, your mother, and all sentient beings are originally one and inseparable. At this level, both coming together and parting are merely appearances rather than ultimate reality." Upon hearing this, Maudgalyāyana's heart suddenly enlightened. He respectfully asked, "World-honored one, I am fortunate to practice under your guidance and hear the true Dharma, but my mother has already passed away. How could she come into contact with such true Dharma?" The Buddha smiled and replied, "Maudgalyāyana, this is why I instruct you to offer daily alms to the monastic community of the 10 directions and dedicate the merit to your mother. Through the dedication of your merit, he is able to come into contact with the power of the Dharma. When his karmic obstructions are eliminated, he will naturally be able to hear the Dharma and progress towards liberation." The Buddha added, "Furthermore, you can recite the Kittagarbha Sutra with a pure heart. The great vows and divine power of Bodhisattva Kittagarbha can guide your mother to liberation from suffering and attainment of happiness." Finally, the Buddha looked at Mushin with deep affection and said, "Mushin, do not grieve. Your reunion with your mother will be on the other shore of enlightenment. When you practice with the bodhicitta and save sentient beings with a compassionate heart, you will ultimately reunite in the infinite Buddha lands, where there is no parting, only eternal bliss." Mukkulinda embraced him from this moment onward, tears streaming down his face, but this time the tears contained hope and determination. He deeply prostrated to the Buddha and said, "World-honored one, your disciple has received the teaching. I will follow your teachings as my guide, not only to save my mother, but also to liberate all sentient beings, together progressing towards the shore of enlightenment. The Buddha nodded with satisfaction, his eyes filled with the light of compassion and wisdom. On the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, the Chiyuan Sutra Society was exceptionally solemn and dignified. Venerable Maudgalyāyana, following the Buddha's teachings, generously made offerings and respectfully invited the assembly of monks from the 10 directions to receive their due offerings. He prepared exquisite food offerings, sliding plates, and overturned bowls, and with the most sincere heart, made offerings to the monastic community. He dedicated all the merits to his mother, wishing that through these merits she may be close to Lady Guangyao, be free from suffering and attain happiness, and be reborn in the Pure Land. Shortly thereafter, Maudgalyāyana used his supernatural powers to search for his mother again, and was delighted to find that she had been liberated from the unfortunate realms, reborn as a heavenly being, radiant and resplendent. The mother smiled and said, "Child, I am grateful for your dedication of merit. I have now been liberated from the sea of suffering. But this is only temporary happiness. I have heard the Dharma of the Buddha and know that I must continue to cultivate in order to attain ultimate liberation." The wooden lotus tip, overjoyed, wept and immediately conveyed the joyful news to the Buddha and the assembly of disciples. The Buddha smiled and said, "Maudgalyāyana, do you see? This is the power of vow transforming karma. Your filial piety and sincere faith have enabled your mother to be liberated from a sea of suffering. But remember, this is only the beginning. The true path of cultivation is still very long." Everyone in the Dharma hall was deeply moved to tears. The Buddha also demonstrated to the assembly with compassion, saying, "Dear ones, the story of Mother Padmasambhava and the Tara teaches us that while familial love is precious, what is even more precious is to transform that love into the driving force for liberation. You must remember, every tear we shed is for the lost beings among sentient life. When we truly awaken, these tears will eventually dry up, transforming into the cool, nectar-like wisdom. As the sun sets in the west, golden rays filter through the window lattice, illuminating the Dharma hall. Buddha lands are gateways to liberation. By reciting the Buddha's name with an untroubled mind, we reunite with loved ones in the Pure Land. This brief message is like a bright lamp, illuminating the hearts of everyone present. All beings realize that although birth and death, as well as separation, bring suffering, through cultivation and enlightenment, we will ultimately reunite with our loved ones in a higher realm, an eternal gathering beyond birth and death. The story of the magnolia flower was passed down from then on, becoming the origin of the Ullambana Festival in Buddhism. Every year on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, Buddhist disciples offer alms to the monastic community and, through virtuous actions, dedicate the merit to their deceased relatives, hoping that they will be freed from suffering and attain bliss, ultimately realizing enlightenment together.